Welcome to this deep dive into Pi Network's governance approach. It's all about creating cryptocurrency systems for and by the people.
Absolutely, that's a pretty bold ambition. So, what's the overall aim with Pi's governance design?
Well, you see, it's built on the idea that trust is the bedrock of any monetary system, and governance ensures changes in protocol are managed properly over time. Essentially, it's about making sure that the community, not just a few large players, influences the system.
Right, so unlike Bitcoin, which relies largely on off chain governance, Pi is trying to have a more hands on community involvement?
Exactly. Bitcoin, and even Ethereum to some extent, exhibited challenges where economic concentration led to political power being piled in
Yep.
the hands of a few. That could lead to conflicts, like the infamous battles seen with Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, and those forks can be so damaging for token holders' trust and even their value. But Pi's approach is to mitigate that, right?
Right, it's like they've taken lessons from history. Think about the US founding, starting with the Articles of Confederation, which failed, and then moving on to a far more resilient constitution. Pi wants to learn from that, designing a flexible governance system that evolves over time.
Interesting analogy. So, how exactly does Pi plan to make this happen?
They're rolling it out in two major phases. The first phase is what they call the Provisional Governance Model, which kicks in when there are fewer than 5 million members. This phase resembles off-chain governance, sort of like what we see in Bitcoin, where the core team plays a key role, while
Yeah.
still leaning on community feedback. The mobile app even lets users comment directly on landing pages, FAQs, and the white paper.
That sounds like a clever way to involve people directly in the process, making sure everyone's voice is heard from the start.
Exactly. And there's an interesting idea about using liquid democracy in that phase. Every pioneer can vote directly or delegate their vote, which could make the system
Yeah, that liquid
both
democracy
inclusive
twist is
and
pretty neat,
efficient.
right? Yet, don't you think relying heavily on a core team during the provisional phase might risk centralizing power, even if it's temporary?
That's a valid point, and it's definitely something to watch. The idea, though, is that once the network reaches a critical mass of 5 million members, the governance model will shift.
So, what happens when they hit that magic number?
At that moment, Pi will host a constitutional convention. A provisional committee will be formed from members who have contributed the most, and they'll gather input via on and offline dialogues. Think local meetups and online interactions through the mobile app to craft a long-term governance structure like a new constitution.
Right. That sounds like a pretty democratic process, and it reminds me of historical constitutional conventions, just updated for a global digital audience.
Exactly. It's like bringing democracy into the digital age. It ensures that governance evolves as the community grows and that the system isn't static or overly controlled from the start.
And I guess those local gatherings ensure that the voices from different cultural and regional backgrounds are represented, which is critical for a global network.
Yes, absolutely. And now, beyond just governance structure, Pi also lays out a detailed roadmap for its network deployment.
Oh yeah, I remember. It's broken down into multiple phases, right?
Correct. Phase 1 is essentially all about design, distribution, and building that foundational trust graph. It's interesting because during this phase, the Pi server operates kind of like a faucet, mimicking how the system will eventually work, but without the full decentralization.
So it's almost like a dress rehearsal before the main show begins?
Exactly. It's a trial phase that allows for iterative improvements. They can refine user experience, gather community insights, and then migrate all these minting processes to the fully decentralized LiveNet once it launches.
And during this phase, Pi isn't trading on exchanges, meaning there's no buying or selling yet, right?
Correct. It's purely a developmental stage to ensure that every change is solid before going out into the wild.
Sounds like they're playing it smart. What happens next?
Next up is phase 2, the testnet phase. Here, the node software is deployed on a test version of the network using the same trust graph as expected for the mainnet, but with test coins. This is to make sure everything runs as planned before launching officially. They even encourage community members to run their own nodes on the testnet, which helps in spotting any hitches.
That's a pretty community-driven approach to debugging and refining the network.
Exactly. It's a dual system, running both the emulator and the testnet simultaneously. They compare results frequently, ensuring that any discrepancies are quickly identified and fixed.
Definitely. So once they're confident with the testnet's performance, they move into the final phase?
Yes, phase 3 is the mainnet launch. This is when the network goes fully live. One key point here is that only accounts verified as belonging to unique real individuals are honored. This is critical to maintaining the network's integrity.
Right, so any duplicate or fake accounts are just discarded. And once the mainnet kicks in, the initial faucet and emulator are shut down permanently?
Exactly. After that, the ongoing updates to the protocol are driven solely by the developer community and the core team through decentralized processes, much like traditional blockchains, with nodes updating the mining software as needed.
That's really quite a full circle move. From having a provisional core team to a fully decentralized system governed collectively.
Right? And by then, Pi is also designed to be exchangeable, meaning it can finally interact with traditional currencies, which is a huge step towards real-world utility.
It's intriguing how Pi's model tackles the inherent tension between the need for early centralized control to build something reliable and the ideal of decentralization in the long run.
Yeah, it's a balancing act for sure. They seem to be very thoughtful about learning from both historical experiments like the US Constitution and from the practical lessons of current cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Still, one could argue that the transitional phase might create some friction, especially if the core team's role doesn't wind down as intended. Don't you think that could risk reintroducing the centralization problems they wish to avoid?
That's a point worth debating. There's always the risk of the provisional phase becoming a crutch if not carefully managed. But the open for comments features, offline pioneer meetups, and the push for a constitutional convention are, in my view, clear indications that they're aiming for a dynamic governance process that adjusts to its own initial shortcomings.
Yeah, I see that. I agree. It'll be really interesting to see if Pi can maintain that balance as they scale up.
Absolutely. It's like they're taking a page from history and infusing it with modern digital innovation. And with that, they're not just building a cryptocurrency, they're pioneering a whole new model for community-governed networks.
Overall, it's a fascinating blueprint, and it could set a precedent for how other digital communities manage their governance in the future.
Exactly. The lessons learned from this model could extend well beyond Pi itself, potentially influencing governance in various decentralized systems.
And that's the power of combining historical insight with modern tech, crafting a solution that is both tested by time and innovative enough for the future.
Couldn't have said it better. Thanks for this engaging conversation. Always a pleasure unpacking these complex ideas together.
Thanks, it's been a lively chat. I'm looking forward to seeing how Pi evolves as it moves toward and beyond the mainnet launch.